In 2011, to mark the 400th anniversary of the King James Bible, Alexander Campkin was commissioned to write a choral piece in celebration of the great reading from the first chapter of John's Gospel. Birmingham Cathedral Choir met to rehearse and perform the piece for the very first time, just a few days before the public premiere in November. This is the story of that very first performance.
This idea first came to me about 7 years ago when I was in a carol service and I heard this extraordinary reading of John 1:1-14. And as I left the service, I wondered whether it had ever been set to music in its totality. And I asked a lot of people who knew about these things and discovered that it had never been set as a full orchestral setting. And that seemed to me to be an extraordinary thing. Here are some of the greatest words in the Bible, foretelling of the birth of Christ, and had never been taken up by a composer. So I just thought that was an extraordinary opportunity to refocus attention on these great words. So that was the beginning of the process.
Good, and really, really careful to accentuate each of the consonants as you sing it. Now, does anybody know what a mantra is?
Yes. A chant.
A chant? Anything else? Any other words we can use? Well, the technical definition of a mantra is a sound capable of creating transformation. And very often this can be used in the Hindu tradition and in Buddhism. So, there was a man sent from God, there was a man sent from God, there was a man sent from God, there was a man. So really, really quick repetitions. But on this note, it can be an octave up, it can be an octave down, I don't mind. And go. Good. What happens is that each person, each singer, repeats a short phrase again and again and again, and they sing it on a single pitch, and this really just brings out a whole different texture. I'd never heard this before, so I did not know how it was going to work. I had done a small demo at home when I was writing it, in which I multi-tracked myself singing all the parts, and I did it again and again, singing the mantra, and I thought it sounded okay. Just that. And I'm just going to conduct that. So, this half the choir, go. And. Good. And that is the fundamental underpinning of my composition. I just thought, you know, I want voices moving at different times, but I don't just want two voices moving at different times, or three or four voices. I just want everything going on with the idea of the personalisation of each individual singer.
Well, the music is very moving indeed. But in terms of singing it, it's very challenging. I was put in with the basses. Now normally, my understanding is 2 or 3 notes well below middle C. Alexander has us way above, way below, and almost one after the other. And not only that, but of course each of the lines, the 4 lines, is divided into 2. And there's this extraordinary dynamic of rhythm as well as consistency.
I had a very inspiring conversation with Bishop David in which he explained to me his understanding of the text. From that sprung forth this idea of a solo voice soaring above the choir in a very personal manner, and that was how I composed the central section of this piece.
The truth of the matter is I'd looked at a number of well-known people, and for whatever reason that had not seemed to be quite right. And I referred to the reliable old internet, and the first name that came up was Alexander Campkin. I thought, therefore, he would fit the bill, because on the one hand, he seemed to me to inherit the great tradition of English choral music, but also to have some innovation in there. In terms of what the music sounds like, I have to admit that I'm a bit of a layman in this. You know, I'm not by any means an expert in choral music, and so I had a very vague idea of what I would personally respond to, which is something that harked back but also looked forward a bit. But my acid test would be, would I cry? So that's been the test. I'm afraid I've cried about 3 times today, which has been wonderful.
I find it really interesting when I listen to a composition the first time, because I find myself analysing the composition as I hear it. It was only when it came to the performance that I could actually try to forget that a bit and just look at the dots on the page as if they had been written by someone else.
If God is God, he's there from the beginning, here now, here into eternity. And of course the gift of his son, Jesus, which 2,000 years ago came into the world, was spoken about not just by prophets, but by evangelists like John, who captured in wonderful language the majesty and yet the humility of God in bringing Jesus amongst us. So spiritually, it's not just the music that lifts our hearts, but also the words.